Richard Whitman's words hung in the air of his corner office, the Manhattan skyline framing his pale, smug face. The CEO of Pinnacle Technologies leaned back in his ergonomic chair, his manicured fingers forming a steeple beneath his chin. I sat across from him, 50 years of life experience telling me to remain composed even as my stomach churned. 22 years at this company, Executive Vice President of Operations, consistently exceeding targets. Yet here I was, Marcus Johnson, being dismissed like an inconvenient truth. I've brought in $37 million in new business this quarter alone, I said, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. Numbers aren't everything, Marcus. Whitman's smile didn't reach his eyes. It's about fit, team dynamics. The board agrees we need someone who better aligns with Pinnacle's future direction. Beside him, Bradley Porter, the newly appointed COO and Whitman's former college roommate, nodded sagely. I'd only met Porter twice since his arrival, 3 months ago, but he'd managed to insert himself between me and every major decision. You mean someone who looks more like you? I thought, but didn't say. You'll receive 6 months severance, Whitman continued, sliding a folder across his glass desk. HR has prepared the paperwork. We'd appreciate your discretion, of course. I stood, buttoning my tailored jacket. Of course. Porter cleared his throat. You might want to clean out your office today. We've scheduled meetings with your team tomorrow to announce the transition, so they couldn't even give me the dignity of saying goodbye to the people I'd mentored for years. Your security access will be deactivated at 5, Whitman added, already checking his watch. I nodded, once dignity intact despite the humiliation burning in my chest. Understood. As I turned to leave, Whitman called after me. No hard feelings, Johnson. It's just business. The elevator ride to my soon-to-be former office on the 38th floor gave me exactly 47 seconds to compose myself. I straightened my tie, adjusted my cufflinks, gifts from my late father when I first joined Pinnacle, and exhaled slowly. My assistant, Melissa Chen, looked up as I entered, her intuition immediately sensing something was wrong. Marcus, everything okay with the executive meeting? Pack up my personal items, please, I said quietly. I've been let go. Her eyes widened. What? That's impossible. The quarterly reports were stellar and the Austin project. Apparently, I'm not a culture fit. The words tasted bitter. Melissa, 29 and brilliant, had been with me for 5 years. She looked stricken. This is because of Porter, isn't it? Ever since he arrived? Please, just help me pack. She nodded, professional as always despite the tears welling in her eyes. What about your files, your contacts, your research on the Singapore expansion? Leave company property where it belongs, I said, though the Singapore project had been my brainchild, something I'd nurtured for 18 months. As we packed my belongings into cardboard boxes, awards, family photos, the vintage fountain pen collection I'd built over decades, my phone buzzed. A text from my old friend James Woodson. Dinner tonight? Big news to share. I almost declined. The last thing I wanted was to socialize. But James had been my roommate at Howard University 30 years ago. If anyone would understand this moment, it would be him. 7 p.m. The usual place, I texted back. Melissa helped carry my boxes to the parking garage. As we loaded them into my car, she handed me a flash drive. What's this? Your personal contacts. And she hesitated. Some of the research data on the Singapore expansion. It's your work, Marcus. I should have refused it. Should have maintained the high road. Instead, I pocketed the drive. Thank you. I hesitated. Melissa, you should update your resume. Porter will bring in his own people. She straightened her shoulders. I know. I already have interviews lined up. I smiled despite everything. I'd taught her well. Marcus, she said as I opened my car door, whatever you do, next, I want in. You're the best leader I've ever worked with. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. And one more thing, she added. You should know, there are rumors Pinnacle is in trouble. The Austin project isn't going well since Porter took over, and that janitor who always chats with me, Earl, he overheard the board talking about liquidity problems. I filed this information away. Take care of yourself, Melissa. The drive home to my brownstone in Harlem was a blur. Inside, I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and stood before the window, watching the neighborhood I'd grown up in, left and returned to as a successful man. My father had worked 3 jobs to put me through college. "Excellence is the only answer," he'd say. What would he think now? At 6:30, I changed into a fresh suit and headed to Bernard's, an upscale steakhouse where James and I met monthly. He was already there, his athletic frame belying his 51 years, his smile widening when he saw me. "Marcus Johnson," he said, rising to embrace me. "Looking sharp as always." I returned his hug. "James, good to see you." We ordered drinks and I debated how to share my news. James beat me to it. "I've got something to tell you," he said, eyes dancing with excitement. "My investment firm just secured $5 billion in new capital. We're launching a major acquisition fund focused on tech companies." James had left his corporate law practice 10 years ago to start Onyx Capital Partners, now one of the most successful black-owned investment firms in America. While I'd climbed the corporate ladder, he'd built something of his own. "That's incredible," I said, genuinely happy for him despite my day. "We need someone to head our tech division," he continued. "Someone who understands operations, global markets, strategic planning. Someone like you." I blinked. "What are you saying?" "I'm offering you a job, Marcus. Partner level, equity stake." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then, "I was fired today." James's expression darkened. "What? Pinnacle fired you? On what grounds?" "Not a culture fit, apparently." "Those bastards?" James set his glass down hard. "After everything you've done for them." I told him everything. The dismissal, Porter's appointment, the rushed exit. "This is perfect timing then," James said when I finished. "Join Onyx. We've been friends for 30 years. I know what you're capable of. I don't want charity." "This isn't charity. It's strategy." James leaned forward. "Look, we're targeting undervalued tech companies with strong fundamentals but poor leadership. Companies that need restructuring, new vision. Your expertise is exactly what we need." I considered it. Freedom from corporate politics. Working with an old friend. Building something meaningful. "There's something else," I said, pulling out the flash drive. "Pinnacle's Singapore expansion plan. My plan. And rumors they're in financial trouble." James raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" I twirled the flash drive between my fingers. "I've given 22 years to Pinnacle. I know its strengths, weaknesses, true value, and how to fix what's broken." "Marcus Johnson, corporate raider?" James chuckled. "I like it." We clinked glasses, and in that moment, a plan began to form. Not just revenge, something more elegant. A reckoning. "Welcome to Onyx," James said. I smiled for the first time that day. Let's get to work. The Onyx Capital offices occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek building in downtown Manhattan, all glass and steel and success. My corner office overlooked the city, including, in a touch of poetic justice, the Pinnacle Technologies building 6 blocks away. My first month at Onyx was a crash course in investment strategy. I worked 18-hour days, absorbing everything, leveraging my operational expertise into a new skill set. James was a patient teacher and an enthusiastic partner in what we now called Project Phoenix. Melissa joined us 2 weeks after I did, having been restructured out of Pinnacle as I'd predicted. She became my right hand, organizing research, scheduling meetings, and managing communications with the precision I'd always valued. "They're bleeding senior talent," she told me over lunch one day. 5 directors have left since you were fired. The Singapore project is officially on hold." I nodded. "And the stock price? Down 17% in 3 weeks. There are whispers about missed projections." This aligned with our research. Porter's leadership was exactly as ineffective as I'd anticipated. The board had backed the wrong horse. Our plan was methodical. First, we established a shell company, Phoenix Acquisitions, to begin quietly purchasing Pinnacle shares. Second, we approached key institutional investors with concerns about Pinnacle's management, planting seeds of doubt. Third, we initiated background research on every board member looking for leverage, and that's when we found gold. "Marcus, you need to see this," Melissa said one evening, entering my office with a folder. Inside was a report from our investigative team about Thomas Rutherford, Pinnacle's longest-serving board member and Whitman's mentor. Rutherford has been quietly selling his shares, I murmured, scanning the document. Almost $2 million worth in the past month. That's not all, Melissa said. He's been meeting with representatives from GlobeTech. Our source believes he's helping them prepare for a hostile takeover. GlobeTech was Pinnacle's largest competitor, known for acquiring companies and stripping them for parts. If they took over, thousands would lose their jobs. This changes things, I said. If GlobeTech gets Pinnacle, it won't just be Whitman and Porter who suffer. What do we do? Melissa asked. I studied the Manhattan skyline, thinking. We accelerate the timeline, and we need an ally on the inside. Enter Earl Washington, the janitor who'd overheard the board's concerns. Melissa had maintained contact, and we arranged a meeting. At 67, Earl had worked at Pinnacle for 29 years, invisible to executives but privy to countless confidential conversations. They don't even see me, he said over coffee in a diner near his Bronx apartment. I empty Mr. Whitman's trash while he's on speakerphone discussing acquisitions. Would you be willing to help us, Earl? I asked. We want to save Pinnacle from GlobeTech, but we need information. They're planning to cut the pension program, Earl said, eyes hard. I heard Porter telling Whitman it's unnecessary overhead. 400 of us depend on those pensions. If we succeed, those pensions will be protected. You have my word. Earl studied me, then nodded once. What do you need? With Earl as our eyes and ears, we learned that GlobeTech planned to make their move in 3 months. We had a deadline. By week 8, Phoenix Acquisitions had accumulated 7% of Pinnacle's shares. By week 12, we reached 11%, all while Pinnacle's stock continued to decline. The board called an emergency meeting. Earl says they're panicking, Melissa reported. Porter blamed the development team for the Austin project failure, but Rutherford pointed out that the problem started after you left. And Whitman? Trying to arrange emergency financing. 2 banks have already turned them down. I smiled. James and I had been busy making calls, sharing our concerns about Pinnacle's leadership with every financial institution in New York. The next day, Earl brought us something unexpected. An internal memo outlining Pinnacle's desperate plan to sell off their innovative cybersecurity division, the company's most promising asset, to raise quick cash. This is their mistake, I told James, showing him the memo. They're sacrificing the future to save today. Time to make our move, James agreed. We leaked the memo to a financial journalist who'd been covering Pinnacle's decline. The story broke the next morning. Troubled tech firm selling crown jewels. The stock plummeted another 15%. That afternoon, Melissa burst into my office. Marcus, Whitman's called another emergency board meeting for tomorrow. And there's something else. A woman named Diana Freeman has been asking questions about our stock purchases. Diana Freeman. The name hit me like a physical blow. Pinnacle's chief legal officer and the one executive I'd considered a friend. We'd worked closely on international expansions, appreciating each other's strategic minds. When I was fired, she'd been on maternity leave. What kind of questions? I asked carefully. About who's behind Phoenix Acquisitions. About patterns in the trading. She's smart, Marcus. She might connect the dots. I considered this complication. Diana was formidable, ethical, and wouldn't be intimidated. If she discovered our plan, invite her to dinner, I decided. Tonight. Diana arrived at the restaurant precisely on time, elegant in a tailored suit, her expression curious but wary. She recognized me immediately. Marcus Johnson, she said as the maitre d' led her to my table. So it is you. I stood to greet her. Diana, you look well. Motherhood suits you. Cut the pleasantries. You're behind Phoenix Acquisitions. I gestured for her to sit. I prefer to call it an investment opportunity. You're attempting a hostile takeover of your former employer, she said flatly, after being terminated. The legal implications are non-existent, I finished. There's no non-compete in my separation agreement. I'm simply an investor concerned about Pinnacle's direction. She studied me. This is about revenge. This is about value, I countered. Pinnacle is being mismanaged into the ground by Whitman and Porter. And now Rutherford is helping GlobeTech position for their own takeover. Diana's eyes widened slightly. You know about GlobeTech? I know everything, Diana, including their plans to dismantle Pinnacle for parts. She was silent for a long moment. What are you planning to do? Save the company, preserve jobs, protect pensions, honor the innovative spirit that made Pinnacle great before Whitman lost his way. And Whitman? Porter? I smiled thinly. They'll receive the leadership opportunity they deserve. Diana sipped her water, thinking. Why tell me this? I could go straight to Whitman, because you care about Pinnacle's people, because you know I'm right about the company's trajectory, and because you've always valued integrity over politics. I leaned forward. I'm offering you a choice, Diana. Join us and help reshape Pinnacle, or stand with a failing regime. What would my role be in this new vision? The same as now, Chief Legal Officer, but with real authority, reporting directly to the board. She raised an eyebrow. Which would include you. It would. Diana considered this, her brilliant legal mind no doubt analyzing every angle. Finally, she set down her glass. I want it in writing. My position, authority, compensation, and guarantees for the staff. No mass layoffs, pension protections. I slid a folder across the table. Already prepared. She laughed despite herself. You were that confident? I know talent when I see it. Diana opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. This is generous. It's fair and necessary. We need your help to execute the final phase. Which is? I told her our plan. Her eyes widened, then narrowed thoughtfully. It's aggressive, she said when I finished, but legally sound if executed precisely. She closed the folder. I'm in. The next day, as Pinnacle's board gathered for their emergency meeting, Phoenix Acquisitions, now owning 17% of the company, filed an SEC 13D form declaring our intention to acquire a controlling interest. Simultaneously, we released a press statement highlighting leadership failures and proposing a new direction. The business media erupted. Unknown investor targets struggling tech firm, blared the headlines. Pinnacle's stock, already wounded, stabilized as investors speculated about new ownership. Inside Pinnacle, panic set in. Earl reported that Whitman was coming undone, shouting at executives and demanding solutions. Porter was frantically calling contacts at investment banks, seeking white knight investors. And Diana? She was brilliantly playing both sides, appearing loyal to Pinnacle while feeding us critical information. Rutherford is pushing for an immediate sale to GlobeTech, she reported during our nightly call. He claims it's the only way to preserve shareholder value. And the other board members? Wavering. They're scared of a prolonged battle. Whitman promised he could find alternative financing by next week. He won't, I said confidently. What about the poison pill provision? The poison pill was Pinnacle's main defense against hostile takeovers. If any single entity acquired more than 20% of shares, other shareholders could purchase additional shares at a discount, diluting the would-be acquirer's stake. It requires board approval, Diana said, and I've been quietly raising concerns about potential shareholder lawsuits if they trigger it without exploring all options. 3 members are now hesitant. Perfect. Our next move was bold. James arranged meetings with Pinnacle's 5 largest institutional investors, representing nearly 30% of shares. I attended each meeting, not as Marcus Johnson of Onyx Capital, but as an advisor to Phoenix Acquisitions. In these meetings, I presented detailed analysis of Pinnacle's operational weaknesses, contrasted with its untapped potential. I outlined our vision, streamlined management, renewed focus on innovation, strategic international expansion, beginning with Singapore. 4 of the 5 investors expressed interest in our plan. The 5th, a conservative pension fund, remained, loyal to current management. We need to go public, James said after the last meeting. Reveal yourself as the face of Phoenix. Your history with Pinnacle gives our bid credibility. Not yet, I cautioned. Timing is everything. That timing arrived sooner than expected. The next morning, Diana called with urgent news. GlobeTech just made a formal offer, $17 per share, all cash. The board meets in 3 hours to consider it. Pinnacle's current share price was $12. GlobeTech's offer represented a 42% premium, generous, enough to tempt the board, desperate enough to confirm our suspicions about Pinnacle's vulnerable state. We need to counter immediately, I told James. We were planning 20 per share next week, he reminded me. 22. Today. Before. The board meets. James whistled. That's an 83% premium. The financing is in place, I assured him. Make the offer. 2 hours later, as Pinnacle's board gathered in their 42nd floor conference room, they received our counteroffer, $22 per share, contingent on board. Approval within 24 hours. Earl, polishing the conference room's glass walls, watched the chaos unfold. Whitman received the offer mid-meeting, his face flushing with anger. Rutherford argued vehemently for the GlobeTech deal. Other members appeared torn. Who the hell is behind Phoenix Acquisitions? Whitman demanded, according to Earl. And how do they know so much about our operations? Diana suggested they might consider meeting with Phoenix representatives before deciding. Rutherford opposed this vehemently, but 3 other board members agreed. A meeting was scheduled for 9 the next morning. That night, I barely slept. 22 years at Pinnacle. Countless nights and weekends sacrificed. Innovations created. Teams built. All ended with, people like you don't fit our culture. Tomorrow, culture would take on a new meaning. I arrived at Pinnacle's headquarters at 8:45, dressed in my finest suit, accompanied by James, Melissa, and our legal team. Security stopped us in the lobby. We have a meeting with the board, I explained. The guard checked his list. Phoenix Acquisitions, 42nd floor, main boardroom. He didn't recognize me. Why would he? I was just another executive visitor. In the elevator, James squeezed my shoulder. Ready. I nodded, adjusting my gold cufflinks, my father's final gift. The boardroom fell silent when I walked in. 11 faces registered shock, confusion, and in Whitman's case, fury. What is the meaning of this? He demanded, standing abruptly. I smiled, taking my time to survey the room. Rutherford looked pale. Porter seemed confused. Diana, seated at the far end, maintained her professional composure despite the slight smile tugging at her lips. Good morning, I said pleasantly. I believe you're expecting representatives from Phoenix Acquisitions. I'm Marcus Johnson, CEO of Phoenix and partner at Onyx Capital Partners. This is absurd, Whitman sputtered. You can't. Actually, he can, James interjected smoothly. I'm James Woodson, founder of Onyx Capital. Our offer of $22 per share represents the best, indeed the only, path forward for Pinnacle Technologies. Porter found his voice. This is clearly motivated by personal vendetta. The board can't seriously consider. The board has a fiduciary duty to consider all legitimate offers, Diana interrupted. And Phoenix's offer exceeds GlobeTech's by $5 per share. That's nearly $60 million in additional shareholder value. Rutherford's face had turned an alarming shade of red. This is a publicity stunt. They can't possibly have the financing. James slid a document across the table. Full financing verification from Goldman Sachs. We're prepared to close within 30 days. The board members began whispering among themselves. I remained standing, my gaze fixed on Whitman. I'd like a moment to address the board, I said. Whitman looked to the chairman, Harold Fletcher, who nodded reluctantly. 12 months ago, I was told I didn't fit Pinnacle's culture, I began. After 22 years of service, after leading the company's most successful operational expansion, after generating hundreds of millions in revenue, I accepted that decision, painful as it was. I paced slowly around the table, making eye contact with each board member. In the year since my departure, Pinnacle's stock has declined 47%. The Austin project is 18 months behind schedule. The Singapore expansion was abandoned. Key talent has fled. And now, you're considering selling the company's future, its cybersecurity division, to stay afloat. Porter started to object, but Fletcher silenced him with a raised hand. I'm not here for revenge, I continued. I'm here because I believe in what Pinnacle could be, should be. Our offer isn't just financial. It's a commitment to restore this company's innovative spirit, operational excellence, and yes, its culture, a culture of merit, integrity, and genuine inclusion. I stopped, behind Whitman's chair. A culture where people are judged by their contributions, not their fit. Whitman's expression froze as the implications sank in. Fletcher cleared his throat. What are your specific plans for the company, Mr. Johnson? streamlined executive leadership, renewed focus on core technologies, strategic international expansion, beginning with the Singapore project, protection of staff pensions and benefits, and sustainable growth rather than quick-flip profits. And current management, another board member asked, will be evaluated. On merit, I said diplomatically. Those who demonstrate value will have a place in the new pinnacle. My eyes met Whitman's, and we both knew what that meant for him. Fletcher conferred quietly with the board members seated nearest him. We'll need time to discuss both offers. Of course, I agreed. We'll wait outside. In the anteroom, James clapped me on the back. You were magnificent in there. It's not over yet, I cautioned. Melissa, who had remained silent throughout, squeezed my arm. Whatever happens, you've already won. They know who you are now. An hour later, we were called back in. Fletcher stood to address us. After careful consideration, the board has voted to accept Phoenix Acquisition's offer of $22 per share, subject to standard due diligence and regulatory approval. Whitman stared at the table, defeated. Porter looked shell-shocked. Rutherford had apparently left the room. We'll announce the decision at market close today, Fletcher continued. Mr. Johnson, we'd like you to join us for that announcement as the incoming CEO. I nodded. I'd be honored. As the meeting concluded, Diana approached me. Congratulations, she said, extending her hand professionally despite the warmth in her eyes. Pinnacle is lucky to have you back. Lucky to have both of us, I corrected. Your leadership will be essential going forward. Whitman brushed past us without a word, his shoulders hunched. Porter followed, shooting me a venomous glance. What happens to them now? Diana asked quietly. Whitman will receive his contractual golden parachute. Porter's fate depends on his willingness to adapt to the new culture. The afternoon was a whirlwind of paperwork, legal discussions, and preliminary transition planning. At 4 o'clock, we gathered for the press announcement. Fletcher introduced me as Pinnacle's incoming CEO once the acquisition was complete. I stepped to the microphone, cameras flashing. I first joined Pinnacle Technologies 23 years ago, believing in its potential to transform industries through innovation. That belief has never wavered, even during my brief absence. Today marks not an ending, but a new beginning, a recommitment to the values of excellence, integrity, and genuine inclusion that should define any great company. The stock jumped 15% in after-hours trading. Later that evening, as the executive floor emptied, I found myself drawn to Whitman's office, soon to be mine again. He was there, packing personal items into a box, much as I had done a year earlier. He looked up when I entered, his expression a mixture of anger and resignation. Come to gloat? He asked. No, I said honestly. That's not my style. Whitman sighed, setting down a framed award. I underestimated you. You misjudged me, I corrected. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. What happens now? You'll receive your contractual severance. The board has approved it. Despite everything? Despite everything, I confirmed. I don't believe in perpetuating cycles of inequity, even when they've benefited me. Whitman studied me for a long moment. You're a better man than I am, Johnson. I know, I said simply. I left him to his packing and walked to the window, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline now bathed in twilight. My father's voice echoed in my mind. Excellence is the only answer. He was right, but incomplete. Excellence was the beginning, justice was the middle, and grace, difficult, necessary grace, was the end. The next morning, I arrived early, walking through Pinnacle's lobby with a new perspective. The security guard recognized me this time. Welcome back, Mr. Johnson, he said with a smile. Thank you, Carl, I replied, remembering his name from years of morning greetings. In the elevator, I pressed the button for the 42nd floor. As the doors closed, I caught a glimpse of my reflection, a 50-year-old man who had come full circle, not as a victim seeking revenge, but as a leader bringing renewal. The doors opened and I stepped into my future.